Right, you're listening to 91.5 WUML Lowell. The program is Blues Deluxe. And wow, it's my pleasure and honor of all time to have Brooks Williams with me. How are
Oh
you,
man,
sir?
I'm doing well, and thank you so much for having me on your show. And it's good to meet you and to connect over the music. So thanks so much, man.
Well, like we had we just spoke about, I've known you most of the time you've been around. I mean, as a musician, because you
Yeah,
you were here in you were here in Massachusetts for a while. But
long time.
before we talk about that, you grew up down in Georgia, correct?
Yeah, I was born in Statesboro, which for someone who loves blues music, that's a pretty cool thing to have.
Yeah.
And that's where my family is from. They're from Georgia. My father was from a part of Georgia really close to the Florida border. That's where his family is from. And that was our home base, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina a little bit, but mostly it was Georgia. So what a great legacy to have. I mean, no one knew I'd eventually fall in love with guitar and with blues, but what a great thing to have. So Statesboro, we lived in Augusta, we lived in Savannah. All my family that's still alive are still down there.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that left. I'm the only one that left the South. So yeah, it was pretty cool. The weird thing is though, I wasn't aware of I wasn't aware personally of much music that was going on, but the music was in the air. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It was just everywhere. It was a culture of music, even though I wasn't really, I was not really that aware of it. What I was aware of was my older brothers, two older brothers, a fair bit older than me, had really good taste
In
in
music. Yep.
in music with rock and blues, and particularly blues rock. So, Butterfield Blues Band, Taj Mahal, Ry Cooder, Maria Muldaur, all that stuff was blasting through the walls of the
House.
house.
Yep.
And that was a great education. And it wasn't till I moved to Boston when I guess I would have been about 17 or 18, that I realized there was a connection, because I'd go to like the Nameless Coffee House in Harvard Square, be like, "Oh, they're playing an Allman Brothers song." No, they're not. They're playing a Blind Willie McTell song. I didn't know it was Blind Willie
Yep.
McTell.
You were learning. You were
I was
learning.
learning. Yeah, yeah, man. And what a great place to learn, in the bars and coffee houses around Boston, especially in those days. It was, there was Rory Block and Paul Jeremiah and Chris Smither and John Hammond, and even Taj Mahal was playing some of the little
Yeah.
rooms then as well. I mean, it was just like, I just blow my mind that this stuff was happening.
And you were
You
right
know,
there, right in the heart of seeing it all.
yeah, and I didn't know, because I was around. I was around people that played folk music, that played coffee houses, and I don't really have a background in that. That's not what I know. I know country music. I know what we now call Americana, but I know like Doc Watson and Emmylou Harris. I know that stuff, but I didn't know folk music at all. So it was an education there as well, to go into these coffee houses and hear people talking about all this stuff from the 50s and 60s. I didn't have a clue what that was. So it was,
More learning
yeah,
for you,
it was
right?
lots of learning. And it was so interesting when I sort of got music in my sights as a thing. Like, I really felt that was my future. Um, what what I needed to do was pay the rent. I was living in a little apartment. I was living in Northampton, Massachusetts, right? And
Wow,
I
near
needed to
UMass, not too far
y-
from UMass.
not too far from UMass, and I needed to pay the rent. And I figured out how many gigs I had to do a month to pay the rent and like have a car and,
Yep.
do all that stuff. And that's what led me to play in all these. I played everywhere. Anywhere they'd book me, I'd play bars. I try to get these things called residencies where you could play once a week. So I could just book like a
A whole
month at a
week.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just would play and play and play. And they weren't, to be honest, they weren't the most exciting gigs. Like sometimes people didn't listen, they talked all the way through. But it was a great training ground, and it was how I honed my
Well,
thing.
you know who went to UMass Amherst, right? Taj Mahal.
I know.
You
I
know
know.
that?
I couldn't believe it, man. He's a Springfield boy.
Yeah. Do you ever play
So
with
cool.
him?
You know, I mean, I've never sat down and played with him, but early on, in those early days, we did a gig in Troy, New York, and it was such an honor to work with him. And we did 2 shows in a little blues club, and I opened both shows, and I was over the moon. And he actually listened to me play, and of course, because it was Taj Mahal, I leaned heavy into the bluesier side of what I do, and it was just such a thrill, to just have that opportunity. But I've never actually sat down and played. That would be cool. That'd be cool.
I'm going to tell you something you don't know.
Okay.
The Blues Foundation in Memphis, if you're ever in Memphis, have a hologram of him that you can play with. You can play with him.
That's so cool. I did not know that.
Oh yeah, it's been up for a while, and he's played. I interviewed the president of the Blues Hall of Fame Foundation, and she works with him. Her name is Kim Horton. She's the president. She works with him, and I said to her, "What was that like to see him play with his hologram?"
That's bizarre. That would be cool to hear about. I'm telling you.
And she said, "You can." I did an interview with her on my YouTube page. You can go watch it. But he loved it. He was thrilled that if something happens to him down the road, people are going to always be able to see him and music. She said the musicians that have come in love it because they can sit down and play with him, even though that he's not there.
Yeah, that's pretty great, man.
So just so you know, someday if you're ever in Memphis, go to the Hall of Fame. He's there, and he's a hologram.
I will do that, man. That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool. Yeah.
He's a great guy. I've interviewed him a couple times and spoke to him.
Yeah.
I saw him in Boston a few times playing some of the clubs.
Yeah. Cool.
So you came to the Boston area, and you were playing a lot. I remember seeing your name everywhere.
Yeah. I was so not focused as like a teenager. I was all over the place. I wouldn't say I was a mess, but I was almost a mess. I was just didn't have I didn't know what I wanted to do, and of course, my mother and father were saying, well, you should go to university, so you have a future. Neither of my brothers had gone to university. Kind of I was their last hope. So my father knew somebody who knew somebody, and they said, oh, there's all these colleges and universities up around Boston. So why don't you go up there? And I thought, well, yeah, I literally had no plan. I just knew I wanted to move and start my life. And so my plan was to go to Berklee School of Music, but there's a couple problems with that. One, I didn't know how to read music, and play the guitar. I was totally played by ear, and I didn't really know anything about jazz. And in those days, that's what Berklee did. It did jazz, and so that's what could possibly go wrong. So I went to Berklee and had an interview, and I just could tell. Even the me being the mess that I was, I could tell it was the worst. It would be the worst idea for me to go there. So I just got a job. I was living in, let's see, Beverly at that time. I was living on the North Shore. So I lived in Beverly, lived in Ipswich. Uh, and I got a job teaching guitar in a school. I mean, one of those things that you didn't need any qualifications. I was 18, I think, and they just needed somebody to come in and help. So I did that, and that gave me some money. It meant I could live. And then I turned on the radio, man, and the radio, and every twist of the dial was an indie show, blues, folk, country, rock. I mean, it was like my mind was blown. And they always announced gigs. I said, "Oh, they're gigs. Oh, I can go to gigs." So right around the corner from where I lived was a bar, and they had bands there all the time.
What was the
So I
name of that
started.
place?
It was called the Wayward Duck. I think it was in Manchester, Beverly Farms, something like that. It
Yeah.
wasn't far from Beverly. Um, and I went in. There was a place up in Gloucester I used to go to and listen. I can't remember that one, the name of that. And then of course there's Club Passim in Boston. There was
Yeah.
Johnny D. There was Johnny D's in those days.
Yeah.
And what was that bar in Harvard Square that did a lot of blues and a lot of
Oh, there was a bunch
jazz?
of them. Inman
Yeah, there
Inman Square Men's Bar was one.
Inman Square Men's Bar. Yeah, I used to go into. They do like Sunday afternoon gigs, and I'd go in on the tee, and I'd be
Yeah.
like, wow. It was my education, and then
Passim is still around, by the way. Passim is still around.
Yeah, Passim, yeah, still around. Yeah, so cool, was really great, and that got me into. First of all, I thought, well, if I'm going to stay, I should go to school. And so I went to Salem State. I went on my own.
Yeah.
I went on my own sort of. It wasn't through my parents that I did it. I just said, I really want to do this, and I just did a general kind of degree. But I was so focused on music then, and people were starting to ask me, "Oh, would you come and play? We got this little thing happening. Would you come and play?" Um, and so I was getting primed, to play, so when I did finally turn the corner and made a decision that I'd really like to try it, I'd really like to try to make my living with music. There were just all these bars, coffee houses. I used to do bars, like I would do bars during the week. Because the bars would do solo acoustic acts during the week, but they wouldn't do them on the weekend because they wanted bands on the weekend. So I'd do like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'd play bars anywhere around Boston, New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, wherever.
And you were busy.
I was
busy back then.
Yeah. And then also on the weekends, then I would do the coffee houses. So that was really cool. It gave me they were really different vibes. The vibe in the bars was loud and raucous, and that taught me a lot of cool things. But then the coffee houses were cool. It taught me a lot about songwriting because people listen so closely. It's like, oh yeah, I've really got to pay attention to what I'm doing. And yeah, it was great, man. It was a big part of it, made me who I am.
Well, mostly beginning when you first started out, it was more folk than it was straight blues, and then you kind of morphed into the blues. And I wanted to ask you how that came about.
Do you know? The blues is always in what I do. I when I'm most at home, there's like a blues thing in it, and I just think when I started out, because I was following in some pretty big, like, shoes of people that came before me. A lot of singer-songwriters around Boston, a lot of folky singer-songwriters, big shoes, really entertaining people. And I think I tried to be that because I wanted to make a living. Let's be honest. But I mean, that really wasn't me. That wasn't totally me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what would happen is I would move forward and I'd try to do these things, but then like it would initially seem like the right thing to do, but then I'd always end up back in a blues kind of place. Even now, I mean, it's the same thing. I can play loads of different kinds of music, but there's always blues running through it. So it wasn't a conscious effort. It was just suddenly people were saying, "Oh, wow, that's pretty nice slide guitar playing. Oh, that's a cool fingerstyle thing. That reminds me of an early Tom Rush." And I would go like, "Well, who's Tom Rush? You know, what's that?" And they'd say, "Well, he used to do this Elmore James song on acoustic." And I'd be, who's Elmore James?" It was all the education was just in there. It was there was I remember the Boston Globe saying, we would give anything. It was an early review of one of my gigs, or they said we would give anything to hear Brooks Williams and Tom Rush doing "Drop Down Mama," right? And so I didn't even know what that was. Well, weirdly enough, man, 15 years later, when I played the Newport Folk Festival the first time, I was on stage with Tom Rush, and guess what the hell we played? We played "Drop Down Mama," and I just said, "This is weird, man. This doesn't,
this is it, basically."
That's right. I was like, I didn't plan that. I didn't ask for that. I went on stage and he said in front of the audience, "What shall we play?" I said, "I don't know. What do you got?" He says, "How about Drop Down Mama?" I about fell off the stage. Like, what? I said, "How's it go?" And so he played it and off we went. So there you go.
I interviewed him a couple weeks ago.
Oh, cool, man. Cool.
He still lives around here. He's playing all the time.
Oh, bless him. Oh, that's so good to hear, man.
He does a Sunday thing. It's called Rockport Sundays.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's got that great tune called Rockport Sunday. Which
right. And he brings in artists from his whole career. He's been trying to bring people in. You should do that one day with him.
Oh, well, we'll do Drop Down Mama.
Yeah, Rockport Sunday. That would be great. You should connect with him. He's still out there.
I will try to connect with him, man.
And cool. Or I can connect you with him. But he's amazing. The stuff that he knows from all the years he's been doing this.
Yeah.
He was talking about Odetta, how he knew Odetta playing in Cambridge when he was in Cambridge. Wow. He's still around. He's still doing his thing. And like I said, Rockport Sundays is and he's still living here in Maine, I think he lives.
Yeah, cool. That is cool, man.
So
that sounds great.
So so you started out folk, you kind of morphed into blues. Like you said, it's a thread of everything that you do.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows what would have happened? I mean, sometimes choices are made because of what you've got to do. So, like, especially when my son was a baby, and I was touring a lot, and we were, my ex-wife and I, we were struggling to make a living, and there were times I just thought, I've got to get out there and earn the money wherever it is. And so there were times that I made choices based on that. And sometimes that led me into explore other types of music because there was an interest in it. Like, I know I was with a record company that asked me to make an instrumental record, and that I love doing that, but it wasn't my main thing. I never wanted it to be my main thing, but I loved doing it. It was a real cool project, but there's a part of me that was like, well, I actually want to do, this other thing, but, it just wasn't on offer. So, I've always have struggled with that space, with deciding, is this what I want to do or is this what I have to do?
Well, you're more singer-songwriter than you are.
Yeah, definitely more. I'm much more interested. If a song doesn't have singing, I really like lyrics and I like a good story. Then, and I like the emotion that affords, and everything to do with guitar and instrumentation is all to serve that. So I was never one for just like I still to this day, you know, if it's too sort of guitar-y and I lose the thread of the song, I kind of get a little bored with it, you know, even though I know, like if I play with really technically great people, you know, I know they're excellent and I'm in awe of their talent. But on the other hand, I've kind of lost the thread of the song. So I kind of want to get back, let's get back to the song and, you know, should always serve the song. That's what folk music gave to me. That was what it taught me. You know, don't ever lose sight of the song. And you know, that's why I love Mississippi John Hurt. You know, it's like the songs, the stories, the songs, like, oh
Well,
man.
now you just walked right into another question. You put out an album called Brooks Blues, and
Yeah,
you chose all those songs from all those old artists that were some of the turn of the century people.
yeah.
What how did you pick those songs? I know they're your favorites, but how did you pick each one of those songs on that album? It's a great album, by the way.
Well, thank you, thank you. Do you know, I I wanted to represent like, well, first of all, I didn't want to redo anything I had also just recorded. So what's not on there's a Blind Boy Fuller tune called Weepin' Willow Blues, which I did on an earlier record. There's a Sunhouse tune called Grinning in Your Face, which I'd done on an earlier
Great
record.
song.
So those are really great songs. But I just I went into the collection and I was just trying to, you know, trying to choose from across a spectrum of things, and that I felt represented what I know how to play and what I do. So that's why I wanted to put Joseph Spence. I put Robert Johnson. I wanted to put Reverend Gary Davis. I wanted to put Chuck Berry. I mean, Chuck Berry is huge in my pantheon. Uh, you know, he's a great songwriter. His songs are great, and they rock, and they're really cool and bluesy. Even though everyone thinks of it as 50s rock and roll, which it is, but it's also very bluesy in its approach. And so I don't know, it was just such a great project. And that's you know, I mean, if there's one thing that could hang out there long after I dance off this mortal coil, I would be honored if that were the one. And you know, if it were today and I was going to make that record, or if I was going to do a Brooks's Blues Part 2, it would be it'd be different because, you know, the learning has never stopped. You know, I'm still learning. I was still learning then, and I'm still learning now. And
So am I. So am I.
yeah,
It's like I find people from back then that no one knew about. All of a sudden, I find out about somebody. I
yeah,
hear him and I go, Where'd he come from? Where did she come from?"
yeah. It's so true. It's so true. You just come across things, and I think to myself, why did I never hear that before? You know, I was just
Yep.
maybe I did, and I just wasn't in a place to receive it, or but I mean, I'm always exploring, like I'm trying to be aware of stuff out there, and I'm trying to keep that education going because I just think, you know, I just, you know, I love that we write songs, and I love that people write songs, and I'm so proud. There's a handful of songs that I've written that I'm really proud of, but I also don't want that to overshadow these great songs that exist, and I want them to exist. I want to do my part to roll it forward. Let's roll it forward, and somebody else will pick it up from me and roll it forward. But I just want to be as you know, I want to be aware of that. So in my gigs, I mean, even this last tour that I did when I was in New England just a couple of months back, you know, I just sat down and I said, right, I have some new recordings, so I could do a couple of new songs. I've got some recordings that would be maybe from years ago. People might want to hear a track or two from those, so I'll do that. And then I thought, well, there's always going to be somebody who likes the guitar, so I'll put in a guitar piece in there, like a little finger picking thing that are really fun to play. And then I thought, but to intersperse it with like Statesboro blues or, CCNO Blues by Pink Anderson. I just want to dip in there songs that I love. I love Mother Earth, by Memphis
Memphis
Slim.
Slim. Yeah.
I love Sister Rosetta Tharpe, so I love doing some
She was
gospel.
something else. She was
Oh
something
my
else.
God, yeah, yeah. It's mind blowing, and I think you could do a whole gig just of that. And I've got a show coming up in the new year. It's just outside of London, and it's run by these couple of guys that love blues, and they've been so supportive of what I do, and they let me come in and do whatever I want. But I was thinking this year is something different, which I've never done. Funnily enough, all the times I've played there is do like a Brooks's Blues show,
Yep.
where I've rather than just mix in all the other ones because they love the blues and their audience loves the blues. Just focus on that and bring new ones in as well. There's a couple of things I've got that percolating around that I'd love to bring in. So,
Well,
but
give you an opportunity to talk about the songs too before you
yeah,
play them,
yeah, which is
where they
really
came
good.
from, and why you like it.
Yeah. Do you know the weird thing? This is real. I don't think I've told too many people this, but when I was in school, so when I was in university, so I was in Salem, whenever that was, the early 1980s, maybe, or
Yep,
do I
that's
have
when it
that right?
was. That's when it
Early nine,
was.
early 1980s.
I,
That feels about right. All
I
right.
mean, like I graduated from high school in 1977, so yeah, early
All
80s.
right. So early 1980s. So there was a little like student coffee house kind of open mic that happened. I think it happened sometimes on a Friday night in the student union. And there was a guy who had some sort of tape recorder. I think it was like a little reel to reel or something. And he was the only, he sort of helped set up the mics or whatever. So anyway, he used to record those nights. And I remember one night when I was there, and I didn't go to many, but I was there, and everybody else is doing like James Taylor and Fleetwood Mac and Billy Joel and all the stuff that was on the radio, on sort of commercial radio at that time, which was cool. Maybe a bit of Bonnie Raitt or something, or Carla Bonoff, or who knows what. And I remember that the PA system went down, like if something stopped working. So we weren't able to keep playing, but the reel-to-reel tape recorder kept going. And so because we lost power, the shows that it wasn't a show, but it stopped. And so I was just sitting there. I was the one playing at that time. And I just started vamping on a blues and I made up some lyrics on the spot just to fill time while they were trying to figure out
Fix it out.
how
Yep.
to fix the PA. Well, didn't think it, they got the PA fixed. We're back at it. Last I remember it. About 15 years later, this guy shows up at one of my gigs and he
Was
says,
there that night, right?
he was there that night. He shows up with a cassette and he says, "I wanted you to know that I made a tape of that night." And I said, "Yeah, I remember you made tapes of every night." He said, "But I want you to hear this." And so, it's all very precious acoustic music. But then when the PA goes down, I just started playing this blues, and it was like suddenly I felt like I was in my zone. And I was just horsing around. I was just messing around, but I listened to that and I thought to myself, that kind of confirms what I feel. But I can hear it, that I was able just to shift and play this blues. It was kind of like a Lightning Hopkins kind of blues, and I was just able to switch in and do it and have a bit of fun with it. And it was just like the whole mood lifted and changed. And I thought, I hope I never lose that. I hope I always have it. And I just you know, I suppose if I was really good at bluegrass, maybe I'd be doing that instead, or if I was really good at country or whatever. But it just so happens this is what I know. This is what I love. I
Do
love
you
these
have
old
that
songs.
recording?
I don't. I wish I did. I wish I did. I mean, when I'm when I moved from Massachusetts over to England, I was selling a house and I was living in the basement of a friend of mine. And oh my God, I had stuff in boxes. I lost so much stuff in that move. I have no idea what happened to so much of it because I was on a deadline to get out and get over to England. And oh my God. So I'm sure somewhere in some box somewhere there's that cassette. I wish I had it. It was just that little snippet would be all I'd want. That's all I want.
So what had made you move?
Well, I fell in love, and I knew that that kind of love doesn't come around that often, if at all. And so my now wife, at the time we were just dating, we were living on the two continents. She'd fly over to America, she'd fly to Boston and come stay with me, and I'd fly over here, and we were just hemorrhaging money, as you can imagine. You just
Hmm.
you
Can't do
can't
it.
live that way. And we were thinking, because she's always wanted to, she really likes America and likes American music and American film and American culture. She was quite interested in maybe she would move over to the US. And we were kind of thinking along those lines. And the thing that occurred to me was, I'm gonna move this person that I've fallen in love with. I'm gonna ask them to move to where I live, and then I'm gonna go off on the road, and I'm gonna go do gigs. And meanwhile, she's left her family. Both of her parents were still alive then. She had one daughter still living at home, just barely living at home. She had the older one had moved out, had graduated and was off on doing her life, but still they were close by, brother and sister close by, work, friends. And I thought, she's going to come to Massachusetts and I'm going to go off on tour. And, what kind of life is that going to be for her? And I thought, well, I could go there and realistically, I probably will see my family as much as I do ordinarily from living over here. And it just made the most sense. It was a real practical. We just looked at each other and said, we just want to make this happen. And it's tricky moving countries. I mean, anybody knows, and probably many of your listeners have been through this. It's quite an ordeal. But we were just convinced that it was the right thing to do, and we knew it would be one way or the other. But it was the right decision. It was the right decision to come this way, because I was able to come back. I mean, I don't tour as much now as I used to, but I used to do 6-week, 8-week tours coming back to the U.S., and I'd do that a couple times a year. And I was touring over here, going to Europe, and it was great. But it was good for us, and it was good that she could be still with her family. So that was really good.
Well, now you opened another question up for me. Compared to how it was here in the Boston area, when you got there, what was that like for you?
Well, the interesting thing is that, and maybe you've heard this before, but audiences in the UK and in Europe are really switched on to the more traditional roots end of American music.
Yep.
They know more than many Americans know. So weirdly, I was with record companies back in those days when I still lived in America. I was with Signature Sounds. I was with Green Linnet. Um, there was another one. I did a recording for Silent Planet. Did a recording for some Solid Air. I did things, and the thing is that they always had ideas. Like the minute I did a record, they'd always sort of suggest, oh, maybe next time you could do this. They were, which is their right, because they
Hmm.
put the money into me. but it was, sometimes it would get confusing because, you know, maybe an album didn't sell the way they wanted it to. It doesn't mean it's a bad album. It just, but it was hard in my head to separate those two. So I'd
Yep.
sometimes be out on the road and I'd be really struggling to kind of have a firm, like, what's my foundation here? You know, I was too folky for the blues audiences, too bluesy for the folky audiences, too acoustic for the rock audience. You know, it was all these things just flooding at me. And when I first started to tour in the UK, that was never a question. Audiences were just like, bring it on. You just sing that, you sing this, you play that. We love it. And
So it was different. It was
it
different than
was
being.
it was so affirming. And you know, the thing that was a little heavy, um, being around Boston with such a strong folk scene, is you know, when you step outside of that world, and maybe it's happened now since I've moved away, but the thing is that folk music in Europe and in the United Kingdom is real folk music. It's hard. There's no doubt in your mind this is folk
Yeah.
music. It's folk music. You know what I mean? Whereas I'd have to sing like one note and they go, "You're not folk music." So no one would ever say, "Oh, Brooks is a folkie." They never.
Well,
And so
look at all
I
the
felt,
look at all the bands over there at the time. Steel Eye Span and Fairport Convention.
yeah, yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot. There was a lot of folk going on over in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt so great going in to do these gigs. And, you know, I have been so warmly welcomed here. You know, and I feel so lucky because I felt as though, I mean, even though I toured all over the US and a little bit in Canada, I really have felt that Boston, the greater Boston area, is just so generous to me, and they've accepted me and they've supported me, and I feel like that's like a once in a lifetime thing. But
But we have name recognition here too.
yeah, and then I move over here and I experience something similar, and I think, wow, twice in my career that's happened, you know. And you know, I still feel that audiences here understand the roots music really well. And man, they would love your show, man. They would love your show because I mean, much like we were sort of saying earlier, you know, there's very little radio anymore, and whatever radio is still available here, you know, if it's on anything sort of a higher profile, it's kind of getting cut. And you know, people are hungry, and so they are learning things that American listeners have already had to learn, which is you need to go online and stream the programs, and you need to support them. You know, they're you know, the UK is a little bit behind that. You know, it's a few years behind, you know, behind that, but are getting it. And so yeah, it was an education. And you know, you just keep learning, don't you?
Got another question for you. You
All
toured
right.
with Guy Davis. Tell me about that.
Well, do you know, after all these years of touring solo, which I mean, I think I'm coming up to 30, I don't know, 38 years I've been doing this. You know, the majority of the first 20 years was touring solo. And when I moved over here to the U to when I moved to the United Kingdom, it just occurred to me I was finally at a place in my life and my career where I could do music with other people. And I did loads of stuff with people here, with singers and guitarists. But I was talking to my agent here and I said, you know, I want to do something different. And she said, well, why don't you put together some tour? You know, you know, think up some idea, someone that you would want to work with, some concept, pass it over to me, and I'll book the tour for you. And I don't remember in the sequence, but Guy might have been one of the first, where I just said, Guy, why don't we do a tour and call it, we'll put Delta in the title, and I forget what we called the tour, but it was something like that. And that
Inside the
tour did
Delta.
Inside the Delta, that's it. And that tour sold really well. And I think we filled pretty much every day to the tour except one day. I think Guy had one day off the whole time he was here. And we worked. It was so much fun. And one of the things about it that my concept was, and I've done it many times since with various artists, but the concept is each of the artists does some of their own stuff, but what the audience wants to see is they want to see the collaboration. And
Yeah.
so that's always the wild card, whoever you work with. And you never know how full on it's going to be. So like Guy and I, because Guy was essentially my guest, if you will, I opened the show, and then Guy would come up and play the end of my set with me, and then he'd do the second half, and I'd join him for the end of his set. So there were two big chunks in each half that worked. Whereas when I did it with Hans Tasink, who's a fantastic blues player, he wanted us to be on stage together all the time. So we were sitting down, which is something I don't do that often. I like to stand when I sing and play, but he wanted to sit down. We had guitars strung around the back. We had amps and all sorts, but that's what he wanted to do. And we interacted on every song. So that was his idea. And we were on stage the whole show.
And you had fun. Cool. I bet you had a lot of fun doing that.
That was fun. It was really fun. Yeah, it's good stuff. And Han, there was this great moment, which I think you'll appreciate. So I learned Sitting on Top of the World I learned that listening to Chris Smither. All right. So back in the 1980s, going to the coffee houses and the bars and the clubs around
And he
Boston.
was here too with you in that time, during that time,
absolutely.
Right?
He was someone I would call a mentor. He really, he probably doesn't even know, but he was real important to me. I was really learning, hanging out with him and watching him. But I learned Sitting on Top of the World from Chris Smither. And that song was in my head. I didn't want to do it the way Chris does it, because Chris does it his way. I wanted to find my own way into it. So eventually I came up with my own arrangement of Sitting on Top of the World. So Hans and I are on tour. This is, decades later. I'm doing this song, and I did it every night. I do it on slide guitar, and Hans would play a little harmonica. And so, I don't know if your listeners know Hans, but he's a man of few words. He can speak like six languages, but he's a man of few words. And we were touring around the UK for 2.5 weeks in a van full of amps and guitars. And so we're on the next to the last show. We're leaving our gig up in Scotland, way up in the north of Scotland. We're heading to Edinburgh, and we're about 10 miles down the road from the hotel. And we're like 15 shows into the tour, and Hans goes, "Hey, I like when you do Sitting on Top of the World." I said, "Oh, thank you very much." I said, "It's fun to play, and I love you playing harp on it." And he said, "How long have you known that song?" I said, "Well, I've known it since I was young. I learned it from Chris Smither, in the 1980s. We drive 10 miles, silence. 10 miles later, he goes, "I taught it to Chris Smither." I was like, "Oh, now you tell me." It's like, I said, "Well, how did that happen?" And he talked about Chris coming to Europe and then coming to the US and doing gigs together way back in the early to mid 1980s.
And look, like, he's with you now, and you're doing it.
And I'm like, man, I wish you would have told me that on day one of the tour when I first played it, because I want to know more about this. Tell me more about these
history
gigs that you did. Yeah, it's history. I want to know the history.
Yeah,
we're all in this,
together.
Evolution. Yeah. So anyway, that was a moment, and
that's a great story. So you have a new record coming out.
Yeah. I've actually, weirdly, I have two coming out in 2026, but it's a little it's a little sort of specific. I've been touring for 4 years with a fiddle player called Aaron Catlow. Now, Aaron is he's English, and he's really good at sort of Euro jazzy, fearless improvisation. He can play anything. He's great, and he and I have been sort of mining that space. What we envision is kind of a blues that's hanging out in a country bar. So it's kind of bluegrassy.
I like what you do with him. It sounds
Oh,
great.
thank you. I mean, I know there's got to be more in the blues tradition that's acoustic guitar and blues fiddle. And we've certainly searched online, and we've listened to things, but we just love that space. And I mean, I hope this doesn't sound terrible to the listener if I say this, but there's nobody else doing it. There's no one that we come
I know
across.
someone locally.
Is that right?
Her name is Ilana Katz. She plays fiddle.
Wow.
She goes down to Mississippi and plays with some of the guys down there. So next time you're up here, I'm going to have to hook you up with her.
Yeah, do. I would really love that, because I think it's an underutilized combination. I mean, it's like it's kind of like when, Taj Mahal or Ry Cooder pulls out a mandolin when they're playing blues. It's like, oh my God, that's so fresh. It's not just a bluegrass instrument. It's a great blues instrument.
Let me
I
tell
think
you another secret about her.
yeah.
She plays at the Red Line for
Oh,
tips.
oh, right.
So she
Oh, wow.
busks as well.
Wow.
How's
Cool.
that?
So next time I'm on the red line, I'll
Yeah,
have to see
check
if I
her.
timed
Yeah,
it
go.
right.
Yeah, sit down and play with her.
Yeah, it's cool.
Isn't it?
So Aaron and I met in Europe, and Aaron joined me on a record in 2000, and then we were asked to record an instrumental recording, so we did that, and then we've done three vocal, fiddle, and guitar records since then. And so we've got a new one coming out for that, because he's in other bands as well, so he has things he's doing. So we set aside a few chunks of time every year to tour, and so we have a new record coming out for that, which will be really cool. Be really fun to have that. It's a great tour. It's my, like, almost my favorite thing in the world to do. Um, but at the same time, um, I'm doing a couple of solo tours. So I thought, oh well, let's gather in some of these new songs that I've got going, and that's a more of a low key kind of. That's the
Hmm.
thing where you will get that recording if you come to one of my gigs or something. It's not like a high profile thing, but I just find that I just love to either learn new songs or write new songs, and I've always been the person who's done a lot of recording, and I don't put a lot of stuff on it. A lot of it's just me singing and playing. You know, maybe there's one extra instrument on it or something, but I just really like sparse acoustic things. And so yeah, so it should, Aaron and I are thrilled to have the new recording. It's just Aaron and I, and then we've got a friend on double bass, so we've got a bit of low end. But we like did the whole record in 2.5 days, and we just go in and play, just like it's like we're a
Yep.
bunch of friends playing music, and so
The last
yeah.
one you did with him sounds great too.
Yeah, we've just had such a good. It was this feeling that I had. He and I met in the Netherlands. He was on tour with this other guy that he tours with, and they do more kind of folky, like English folky stuff. And we were having a great time. And I just kind of, when I was listening on the last night of the tour, I was listening to their set, and I thought, I bet we could do something. And so when we got back to England, I invited them both to come to the studio and do some tracks with me. And the fellow that plays guitar with Aaron was going away to America on he was on tour with a singer, and so he was going to be gone. So I just said to Aaron, well, why don't you come on your own and bring your fiddle? And we just loved it. And it was just so great. So it's kind of grown out of that. And yeah, it's a cool gig, really fun.
So let's talk about another project that you're in. Laurel Canyon Project, it's called.
Oh man, this is probably the first thing I've ever done where I'm not in charge of it. You know what I mean? Everything that you see or you've seen me do, it's something that I've organized or I've. And this is I just got a message from a friend. You know, I have a friend called PJ Wright, he's a brilliant slide. He's a sort of electric slide player, kind of in a Lowell George kind of vibe. That's his thing. He loves electric guitar, but he's from the he's from the UK. But back in the late '70s, I think he was dating a woman from California. So he was in bands. So he was in California, and
And all that great music from Laurel
all that
Canyon.
great all that great music. And so anyway, he contacted me last summer, I think, last spring or something, and he said, listen, man, I would love to put together a band to play festivals, and we're going to focus on the music of Laurel Canyon. And he said, would you be up for it? So it's myself and PJ, and their great singer called Sally Barker, who's an amazing singer. And then we've got a guy called Mark Stevens, who's kind of a drummer, music. He's kind of a music director. He can play anything. And then we have a couple of side people, depending on the size of the gig. And so it's so great. These songs, that whole vibe, whether it's James Taylor, Barney Raitt, Poco, flying
Burrito
Burrito
Brothers.
Brothers, yeah, the Doors, the Eagles. It's just pulling stuff that that we all love.
Well,
And
we all grew up listening to all that stuff.
exactly, it was so weird. We got together for our first run through, and we just realized that we knew the lyrics. It was so weird. We didn't have to we have to read the lyrics. We knew them all. And so it's a cool thing, and it's cool that I'm finally at a place in my life where I'm not on the road all the time, so I have time to devote to it. And and I'm not in charge, man. I just get the call, hey, come over here and we're going to do this. I mean, it's a band that has a sound, they have their own sound because they're all part of another band. And so basically I just rock up with a guitar and sing. And
So when's that going to happen?
we have our first show in May, and so far it's being booked. It's being booked for this summer, and so far we have a couple of festivals in the diary for the summer, plus another show. And I think things will.
Mostly West Coast, though, right?
They're all in the UK.
All in the
far.
UK.
Yeah, they're all in the UK. Boy, we'd love to bring it over to the US.
Wouldn't that be good?
Hopefully that would happen. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but it's a cool thing. It's something different, and I feel like it's just such a joy to play these songs and to work with other people.
Well, it's not your songs; it's someone
right.
else's songs.
That's right. It's just so free. So yeah,
And you're going to
stuff.
be back here down in the States, well, in New England in the fall, right?
Yeah,
Fall.
yeah. It's turning out that at least every fall I'm coming to the US. I also come at other times. I usually we go to California in the late spring, early summer. Usually there's somewhere else in the midst of that. So there's a few times a year, but coming to New England is a thing in the fall. So I'll be there from sort of mid-October to early-ish November, second week of November, something like that. And
Well, I'm going to keep my schedule open in October and November because I want you to come in and play.
excellent. We'll make sure to touch base on that. I would love to do that, man.
And maybe I'll have Alana come and play a song or two with you.
Hey, that's cool.
Wouldn't
That's
that be
very
cool?
cool. I like the sound of that.
So how do people find out about you, Brooks?
Well, the best way is the old boring way, which is brookswilliams.com. I try to have everything there, links to videos. I mean, you can go out and search and download and stream and all of that, but I have links to everything at brookswilliams.com, all the social media, all that stuff. You can get most of my recordings that are still in
Yeah.
print are
Yeah, I
there.
was laughing about some of your old recordings that are no longer available, and people are getting them to you somehow.
I know, it's the weirdest thing. I did a gig, and my friend Tony, who comes to loads of shows, he's been coming for years. I was doing a show in Rockport a couple of months ago, and he rocked up at the gig and he said, "Hey, I found all these CDs of yours, all these old ones that were out of print that were in like charity shops and used bookstores and whatever." And he said, your fans are going to look for these, and he said, I'd like you to have them. I mean, it was one of the most generous things. And so I came home, and I put it in my email newsletter. These are the CDs that I've got. If anybody wants any. Oh my God! I mean, they just went in an instant. It was 5 seconds later, and there were none left. And I thought, wow, that's
What
cool.
does that tell you? Think about
Yeah.
that. What does that tell
Well,
you?
I was really happy.
So who owns the rights to all that stuff?
Well, some of them are owned by whoever bought out Green Linnet Records, and it may be that's now Compass Records, maybe. I'm not
Yeah,
really
Green
sure.
Linnet is an Irish label. Was an
Yeah, and
Irish label.
yeah, and they went through a series of things and ended up with Compass, I think. Signature Sounds, I I they aren't actively keeping anything in print, although they might have a few things in print. Um, and the individual ones I did with Solid Air and Silent Planet, those are gone. I don't know where those they own the masters to those. Um, yeah, and the rest are I own.
Thank
Thankfully,
God, right?
I own all the rest. Yeah, which is kind of one of the reasons why I did things like Brooks's Blues, Brooks's Guitars. It was a way, because the record companies own the recordings, they didn't own the arrangements or the songs. It gave me an opportunity to have songs,
Rearranged
yeah,
the way you
rearrange
want.
and then have them so I can put them out. So like I did a recording called Shreveport Sessions, which was a live thing recorded in Shreveport, Louisiana, which was so cool. It sold really, really well. And I just made sure that I chose, I put like Lewis Collins on there, and I put Weeping Willow Blues, and I put Amazing Grace on there. I just wanted to make sure they're things that could maybe get lost from other recordings. And I thought, I want these to live in my universe. So
Well, that you have control over now.
yeah, man. Yeah.
See?
And I know, people aren't buying as many CDs as they used to, but still it's nice to have a physical,
Yep.
like I have a physical link to those recordings, but equally I know people can just pop into my website and they can go to the download page and just download those. So it's easy, but still I like that there's a physical element as well.
So brookswilliams.com. You're on social media as well?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, you can find me there. Yeah, and my website's got a link to everything.
That's
Everything is
great.
linked. Yeah, so
Well, Brooks, I just want to say thank you very much for taking over an hour of your time
oh
with
my
me.
God, has it been? Oh God. Thank you so much for letting me ramble on for an hour.
But we need to connect. I'll get you my email and all that. We'll connect, and I'll connect you with Tom Rush. I have his home phone number. I'll just give it to you,
Fantastic, man.
and
Cool.
you can give him a call and see. I bet he'll want to do one of those with you because he was
That would be
talking.
so cool.
I asked him about. He was talking about it last year, getting James Taylor to do one with him, and Jackson Brown to do one with him. He was talking.
Oh my God. Oh my
Um,
God.
But he's had, he had James Montgomery, who's a local guy here.
Yeah.
He had James on not too long ago with him, and it was great. He said he had a lot of fun with him.
Cool. Really cool.
So I'll connect you with Tom, and we'll see if we can get you in October, November of this coming year, 2026.
That would
when
be
you're here
great,
in town.
That would be great.
All right.
All right. Sounds like a plan, man.
Thank you. Have a great
All
day.
right. Thank you so much. See you later. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Take care.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.